Dhul Hijjah, Eidul-adha, hajj and sacrifice. Dhul Hijjah is the last month of the Islamic calendar. Literally, it means hajj. Obviously, this name of the month indicates that the great annual worship of hajj is performed in this month, which gives it special significance. Some specific merits and rules relevant to this month are mentioned below. First 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. The first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are among the most magnificent days in the Islamic calendar. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, "One fast during these days is equal to the fasting of one complete year, and the worship of one night during this period is equal to the worship in the Laylatul Qadr." Every Muslim should avail of this wonderful opportunity by performing during this period as much acts of worship to God as he or she can. The ninth day of Dhul Hijjah. The ninth day of Dhul Hijjah is called the day of Arafah. This is the date when Haji pilgrims assemble on the plain of Arafah, 6 miles away from Mecca, where they perform the most essential part of the prescribed duties of Hajj, namely the stay in Arafah. The fast of the day of Arafah. For those not performing Hajj, it is desirable to fast on this day according to their own calendar. It sometimes occurs that the ninth Dhul Hijjah falls on different days in different countries according to the sighting of the moon. In such cases, Muslims of each country should observe the day of Arafah according to the lunar dates of their own country. The fast of the day of Arafah has been emphasized by the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, as a desirable act. According to a hadith, the fast of this day becomes a cause, hopefully so, of forgiveness for sins committed in 1 year. Beginning from the Fajr of the 9th Zhul Hijjah up to the Asr prayer of the 13th, it is obligatory on each Muslim to recite the Takbir of Tashriq after every obligatory prayer in the following words: Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahil hamd. There is no God but Allah, and Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest, and to Allah belongs all praise. According to authentic Islamic sources, it is obligatory on each Muslim to recite these takbir after every obligatory prayer. For women also, it is commendable, though not obligatory. Whether you are performing prayer collectively or individually makes no difference. You must recite the takbir. However, male Muslims should recite it in a loud voice, while females should recite it in a low voice. On the Eid day, the following acts are sunnah on the day of Eidul-adha. First, to wake up early in the morning. Next, to clean one's teeth with a miswak or brush. Next, to take a bath. To put on one's best available clothes. To use perfume. Not to eat before the Eid prayer. To recite the Takbir of Tashriq in a loud voice while going to the Eid prayer. In the prayer of Eid, khutbah is a sunnah and is delivered after the prayer, unlike the Jummah prayer where it is obligatory and is delivered before the prayer. However, listening to the khutbah of Eid prayer is wajib or necessary and must be listened to in perfect peace and silence. Sacrifice, philosophy and rules. The Arabic word qurban lexically means an act performed to seek God's pleasure. Originally, the word qurban included all acts of charity because the purpose of charity is nothing but to seek God's pleasure. But in precise religious terminology, the word was later confined to the sacrifice of an animal slaughtered for the sake of God. The sacrifice of an animal has always been treated as a recognized form of worship in all religious orders originating from a divine book. Even in pagan societies, the sacrifice of an animal is recognized as a form of worship. but it is done in the name of some idols and not in the name of God, a practice totally rejected by Islam. In the Sharia of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, the sacrifice of an animal has been recognized as a form of worship only during 3 days of Dhul Hijjah, namely the 10th, 11th, and 12th of the month. This is to commemorate the unparalleled sacrifice offered by the Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, when he, in pursuance to a command of God, conveyed to him in a dream, prepared himself to slaughter his beloved son Ismail, peace be upon him, and actually did so. But God the Almighty, after testing his submission, sent down a sheep and saved his son from the logical fate of slaughter. It is from that time onwards that the sacrifice of an animal became an obligatory duty to be performed by every well-to-do Muslim. Sacrifice is a demonstration of total submission to God and a proof of complete obedience to God's will or command. When a Muslim offers a sacrifice, this is exactly what he intends to prove. Thus, the sacrifice offered by a Muslim signifies that he is a slave of God at his best, and that he would not hesitate even for a moment once he receives an absolute command from his Creator to surrender before it, to obey it willingly, even if it be at the price of his life and possessions. The time of sacrifice. Sacrifice can only be performed during the 3 days of Eid, namely the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. It is only on these days that slaughtering of an animal is recognized as an act of worship. No sacrifice can be performed in any other days of the year. Although sacrifice is permissible on each of the 3 aforesaid days, yet it is preferable to perform it on the first day, i.e. on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. No sacrifice is allowed before the Eid prayer is over. However, in small villages where the Eid prayer is not to be performed, sacrifice can be offered any time after the break of dawn on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Who is required to perform sacrifice? Every adult Muslim, male or female, who owns more than 600 grams of silver or its equivalent in money, personal ornaments, stock in trade, or any other form of wealth which is surplus to his basic needs, is under an obligation to offer a sacrifice. Each adult member of a family who owns the above-mentioned amount must perform his own sacrifice separately. If the husband owns the required quantity but the wife does not, the sacrifice is obligatory on the husband only, and vice versa. If both of them have the prescribed amount of wealth, both should perform sacrifice separately. If the adult children live with their parents, sacrifice is obligatory on each one of them possessing the prescribed amount. The sacrifice offered by a husband for himself does not fulfill the obligation of his wife. Nor can the sacrifice offered by a father discharge his son or daughter from their obligation. Each one of them should care for his own. However, if a husband or a father, apart from offering his own sacrifice, gives another sacrifice on behalf of his wife or his son, he can do so with their permission. Some people think that instead of offering a sacrifice, they should give its amount to some poor people as charity. This attitude is totally wrong. Actually, there are different forms of worship obligatory on Muslims. Each one of them has its own importance, and none of them can stand for the other. It is not permissible for a Muslim to perform prayer instead of fasting in Ramadan. Nor is it permissible for him to give some charity instead of observing the obligatory prayer. Similarly, sacrifice is an independent form of worship, and this obligation cannot be discharged by spending money in charity. However, if somebody out of his ignorance or negligence could not offer sacrifice on the 3 prescribed days, 10th, 11th, and 12th of Dhul Hijjah, then in that case only he can give the price of a sacrifice as charity to those entitled to receive zakah. But during the days of sacrifice, no sadaqah can discharge the obligation. The following animals can be slaughtered to offer a sacrifice. The first, goat, either male or female, of at least 1 year of age. Second, sheep, either male or female, at least 6 months of age. Third, cow, ox, buffalo, of at least 2 years of age. Fourth, camel, male or female, of at least 5 years of age. 1 head of goat or sheep is enough only for 1 person's sacrifice. But as for all other animals like cow, buffalo, or camel, 1 head of each is equal to 7 offerings, thus allowing 7 persons to offer sacrifice jointly in 1 such animal. Rules about defective animals. The following defective animals are not acceptable in sacrifice: blind, one-eyed, or lame animal, an animal so emaciated that it cannot walk to its slaughtering place, an animal with 1/3 part of the ear or the nose or the tail missing, an animal that has no teeth at all or the major number of its teeth are missing, an animal born without ears. The Sunnah method of sacrifice. It is more preferable for a Muslim to slaughter the animal or his sacrifice with his own hands. However, if he is unable to slaughter the animal himself or does not want to do so for some reason, he can request another person to slaughter it on his behalf. In this case also, it is more preferable that he at least be present at the time of slaughter. However, his absence at the time of slaughter does not render the sacrifice invalid if he has authorized the person for slaughtering the animal on his behalf. It is a sunnah to lay the animal with its face toward the Qibla and to recite the following verse of the Holy Quran, meaning, I begin upright, turn my face toward the one who has created the heavens and the earth, and I am not among those who associate partners with God. Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 79. But the most essential recitation when slaughtering an animal is Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. In the name of Allah, Allah is the greatest. Distribution of the meat. If an animal is sacrificed by more than 1 person, like cow or camel, its meat should be distributed equally among its owners by weighing the meat strictly and not at random or by mere guess. Even if all the partners agree on its distribution without weighing, it is still not permissible according to Sharia. Although the person offering a sacrifice can keep all its meat for his own use, yet it is preferable to distribute 1/3 among the poor, another 1/3 among his relatives, and then keep the rest for his personal consumption. All parts of the sacrificed animal can be used for personal benefit, but none can be sold, nor can be given to the butcher as a part of his wages. Hajj. The most important way of worship performed in this month is Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The Muslims from every part of the world assemble in Arabia to perform this unique way of worship. Hajj is a worship which requires at least 5 days to be performed in its proper way. Hajj is obligatory on every adult Muslim who can afford to go to Mecca during the Hajj season, whether on foot or by any other carriage. If a person can travel to Mecca to perform Hajj, but he cannot travel to Medina, Hajj is obligatory on him also. He can perform Hajj without visiting Medina. A Muslim woman cannot travel for Hajj unless she is accompanied by a mahram, i.e. husband or relative of a prohibited degree like son, father, brother, etc. If she does not find any mahram to accompany her, Hajj is not obligatory on her until she finds one. However, she must make a will that in case she dies before performing Hajj, the heirs should arrange for her Hajj out of her leftover property. Hajj is obligated only once in one's life. After performing the obligatory Hajj, one is not required to perform it again. However, he can perform the optional Hajj as many times as he or she wishes.